Thanks for loading this short technical analysis insights video. In this video we're going to look at how to judge and time your entry into small cap stocks, in particular with a focus on ONDO as an example. Hope you enjoy it. So let's make a start. In this video we're going to look at how best to time entry into a new moderately small cap stock that perhaps you've never been invested in before, compared to perhaps something that you've held for a long time, and probably if you've held it for a long time for very good reasons. So here we've got the chart of ONDO, which is in blue, and we have the chart of Avacta, which is in orange. The spike at the beginning of the orange chart is when we first got dose escalations and people were optimistic that AVA 6000 was going to work. And it starts at the same, the charts both start at the point at which ONDO was listed, which is why they both start at this point. ONDO for nearly a year was effectively, since its own listing, albeit it started in 2015, continued to build its product and build its markets, build its reach out to new clients, and then took off. In the meantime, Avacta as a biotech continued with its clinical trials, had various stages where those clinical trials went through that led to upturns and downturns, and then a significant upturn when towards the beginning of 2023, when the management team announced, as far as they were concerned, it works, but they need a little bit more data, which is where we are at the moment. And in the meantime, ONDO has effectively brought in more new clients, has developed their product, has moved into different geographies, and has gone from strength to strength. The question is, how long do you ignore this type of growth if you are heavily invested in perhaps something that you feel may grow even faster given time? And undoubtedly Avacta will, given time, grow very far. ONDO, in the meantime, could grow at a pace which matches that or not, but it's certainly worth investigating. And the point is, at what point do you overcome, and we have a separate video on this, your cognitive bias to stay in what you know and go into something that you know less of, but is doing very well. Now, what I've found is that one of the key things to look at is the market cap and the liquidity of a particular stock. Some small stocks are so low in liquidity that if you buy them, you'll never be able to sell the stock. Or they have a market cap which is just prone to being completely abused because it's just so small. The market cap for ONDO, although it doesn't show it here on the trading view screen, is 28 million, and it has 78 million shares issued, and its average volume is about 1 million shares of the 78 million in issue. Interestingly, that million is roughly the same as the million traded for Avacta, so that eases my mind. The fact that it has a reasonable market cap but not huge also eases my mind, because it means that the management team are probably doing the right things, otherwise people wouldn't buy their shares. But then from a technical analysis perspective, what have we got? Well, here we've got a flat period, and in this period it's very difficult to make any judgment as to what to do, and so you'd probably leave it alone because there's no clear indication. But then we have a significant bull run, which then stops at this point, roughly at sort of a comparative level to Avacta, at least in percentage increase terms, since the beginning of ONDO compared to the same time point for Avacta. At this point, you need to start thinking, should you look at this more carefully? Well, from a technical analysis perspective, and I'm not going to go into it too deeply, you're always looking for a change in trend. So we've got a strong uptrend up from, I think here was about 6p or thereabouts, to around 20p. This is showing in percentage terms so that we can compare the two charts. And then we have a pullback, and the pullback is over a reasonable period of time. It's over a period from the beginning of June through to the beginning or middle of July. And so it's a long enough period that is a genuine significant downturn. And from a technical analysis perspective, we can see that that is a change in trend, and we can classify that as two separate steps. There's people who understand technical analysis would call this, in Elliott wave terms, a first and second wave, first impulse wave and a second wave correction, but that's not what really we need to know. The more important point is that we have had an impulse and a correction, and now we're into a further impulse which is even steeper than the first. The question is this all hype, and is it just people ramping this particular stock or not? And that's where you've got to look at the fundamentals as well as the technicals, because the technicals don't tell you enough at this point. The technicals only tell you that there's a lot of interest as judged by the price action. The fundamentals, however, tell you that this is a company, ONDO, which is specializing in reducing insurance claims as a result of water damage in homes. Seems like a very simple thing, but with very little competition and hundreds of millions of homes in the markets that they're targeting, Europe and the US, then very small amounts of penetration into those markets leads to very, very large jumps in their revenue on a quarter by quarter or year by year basis. When you read the research report for ONDO, it becomes abundantly clear that they have a runway which is only just begun. They're not even taking off. I would say perhaps they're taxiing on the runway. And so when you read the broker's report on ONDO and you look at that and then you look at this chart, it becomes quite clear that this is the beginning of potentially even larger upwards wave for ONDO. And that will be sufficiently significant that you have to question whether or not you should hold on to the other shares that you have and go into this, because there's not too many shares where the fundamentals are so strong and the technicals are also so strong. I think ONDO is one of those from what I can see. There's various other things here which are called Fibonacci ratios. I won't go into that, but they support the view that I have. If you've survived through all of this, I know you're waiting for a factor to take off, then I suspect we will see a takeoff something like this, probably sometime in the fourth and maybe even the first quarter of next year and thereafter. In the meantime, this is taking off, without doubt. They are announcing deals on an ongoing basis because as one insurer takes up the service, others follow because they don't want to be left out competitively. So I think it's a good story, and the fundamentals and the chart are strong. If you want to take a position, that's completely down to you. None of this is advice. Hope you enjoy it. It's a very small, succinct preview of ONDO versus Avacta, but predominantly focused on the fundamentals of ONDO. Thanks. So what would be my key takeaway? Key takeaway would be always be on the lookout for other opportunities, new ideas. Check those new ideas against fundamentals. Check the fundamentals against technical analysis, particularly changes in trend, where the trend is very easily and clearly identifiable. And then be happy that you can ride the next trend upwards, that you don't need to be in at the very beginning. It's best to let the trend evolve before you get in. That'd be my sort of key takeaway in terms of entry into a small cap stock. Let the trend develop and let others take the risk until you know that that trend is actually in place and is supported by fundamentals. I do think that's the case for ONDO, and if you take a position, good luck with it, and I wish you well. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers now.